Emily. Brad. See, I don't know them all. You know why? The story I told you, I got block 1, block 2, block 3, and grass. See, now the block ones, I know their faces. I know who they are. I might have saw them at open house. And I've met with them and advised and then re-advised and then double re-advised because I got re-advising nightmares and they wouldn't let anyone help me because it was a horrible nightmare. And so they're in this class and they hope it's right and we're praying it's right. So enough of all that. It's known as Section 504, Section 504 because the special ed law didn't enact until 1975. Okay. So we had the government, the federal government, and the U.S. believed this law wouldn't take care of all special needs too. They did not have any intentions of a new law. The new law came about because of the parents, the advocates, the lawsuits for discrimination, telling kids they couldn't come to school, or your child has Down syndrome, will go visit the nursing home. And they said these things. I grew up during this era. I would go to the nursing home to see kids, and I'd say, why aren't they in school? Well, they can't learn. Well, I think they can. So, what do? We write plans to move them back to the schools. That was a rough time through special ed. In fact, you are going through, I think, one of our better times as far as co-teaching and inclusion. And the rest of those statistics will be all yours. And I'm going to introduce you and you can tell me what you need me to do. If I need to do anything electronic, I'm going to need an electronic person.
I have a PowerPoint that...
When do y'all want to put it up for her, please?
Sure.
Do you have your...
It's up to you guys.
Come here, Josh.
I have the PowerPoint.
Come and hook this up, please. Well, I asked you to volunteer. They're shy. Let's see. Is this a baseball player here? Yeah, he's shy. Look at you. This is Josh. Okay, this is Ima Avid, and she is regional representative.
Well,
I don't know what she
I'm
is.
a vocational rehab counselor for Area 25 of the state.
Area 25.
Yes.
Did they used to be region?
We're Region 4.
Okay. Because I thought I used to know mine by region.
Yeah.
So they changed it a bit. And I'll get the screen on for you, and I'll do your handouts. And he's got everything rocking. He's our man. All right.
There's a lot of stuff on there. There's only one PowerPoint.
He'll get it for you.
Kathy.
If he does it for me, I'm techno illiterate, and they all know it. They come in go home every night and tell me, get back on there and fix this. And I try. Sometimes it happens,
I always spell it wrong.
sometimes not so good, huh?
Hey Kathy,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want to get her the clicker where she can click through her PowerPoint.
I don't know where it is.
It's not there? It's not up there? Alright, I'm gonna
I
go.
mean, if it was, I would, but we'll put it on. It'll be all right. We did last year. But last year, my screen wouldn't come up, but that, if I'm gonna look, if I see it, it'll show me.
More extras.
Yes, extras. Okay, who is in traffic? Did someone take care of them?
Hey Kathy.
Anyone that's not here?
Shoot.
Yes. Yes, and I also told her you could, I was more than happy for you to video it, because it's good information.
Here, I'm gonna
Anyone else?
turn it so she can see the PowerPoint. Do you want me to put it over here? You get a better shot. Hey Kia. That's better. I got you, girl. I got you. Oh, I better misspoke. Just got you.
The
I
law
got you.
in 1975 was not IDEA. It became IDEA in 1990 when we started using people first language. Okay? So 1990 was that reauthorization. The original law, that is correct. The original law, no, the original law, okay, it's 1975, was education for handicapped children. So it was called EHA, that's what it was. Seems like it had an S or another A on it, something. Education for Handicapped Children Act, 94-142, public law. Now, it's been reauthorized lots of other times for different reasons, but those are the reasons the wording changed. So everybody knows when. First law 75, the 1990 is not the only time it's been reauthorized. It's only time the name changed to remove the word handicap to people first language. And then it's education, well, I don't even remember, individualized education for all. I might have to look that piece up because it did change a little bit in there. That's okay.
It's been a while.
That's okay, it's been a while for me too.
I've taken your classes.
Okay, I'm gonna get it. No, I haven't had anything. This is just the second class session.
Oh.
I talked to them at the end of class on Tuesday about transition class. And when we invite, a little bit about VocRehab being invited. I talked a small amount, like 2 sentences on waivers, which is nothing. And so, but they do know about that they have to look for employment, they have to have training and education, and independent living skills. So they each have a case scenario and and some IEP goals to think about, and to look for adult agencies that can help students that have those needs. So from there, I will turn it over to Ms. Adams.
So, as she said, my name is Ina Abbott. I work for the state of Indiana as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. I've been in that role for about 4.5 years, and I get to work with individuals with disabilities over the whole spectrum of possible impairments that you can imagine. And I have also worked prior to that at an agency for individuals with developmental disabilities and other disabilities as a program manager, and I did that for probably about 8 years. I do have my master's degree in rehabilitation counseling and social work. So hopefully that qualifies me to speak a little bit. So I really think that vocational rehabilitation services is an important part of transition services for students, as well as an important service for individuals with disabilities overall. And part of that is because vocational rehab services focus on helping individuals with disabilities reach their employment goals. And that's important because individuals with disabilities is one of the largest minorities in the United States, and it has the highest unemployment rate of any other group in the U.S. So, like, statistics from 2013 have the unemployment rate of individuals with disabilities between the ages of 21 and 64 as 34.5%, which is huge when you think that average unemployment rate is around 5 to 6%. And then in the state of Indiana, that unemployment rate is 35.1%. And there have been multiple studies completed and done that indicate that when an individual is employed, they are healthier, they tend to rely on public assistance less. And of course, it also assists in bolstering an individual's sense of self-worth. In the United States, we particularly look at what we do as a way to measure ourselves, right? So usually when you talk about yourself, you identify yourself with your employment. What do you do? So it's an important aspect. The first 3 slides that are on here kind of go over the overall placement of Indiana Vocational Rehab Services under the Family and Social Services Administration umbrella. So it kind of gives you an idea of the different things that the FSSA serves. And of course they have us at the bottom. And that's our organizational structure. And the next slide kind of gives you an idea of the coverage that vocational rehab provides in the state overall. You'll flip over to the last slide, or not the last slide, but the next one. There. Yeah, so we have 22 areas overall. So we're 25, but only because they've consolidated so many other areas and they haven't renamed us. So they've lumped, we're 25/24. Crazy. And we used to have 5 regions, but they consolidated that down to 4. Trying to save money. More work, less people.
That's how it works.
Yes, it is.
You get 1 teacher, 10 classrooms, 1 parent.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
It's stressful for everybody. All right. So the program, vocational rehab services, like I've said multiple times already, so I'll just reiterate one more time. We serve individuals with all disabilities to help them with their employment goals. And those employment goals are typically based on an individual's interest. So we'll review that. What do you like? What do you see yourself doing? What are you interested in doing? Where their strengths are, because a lot of times somebody may be interested in being a doctor, but their strengths aren't really going to lead to that type of employment in their future. So as you guys are working with transition students, keep in mind that you really want to discuss employment possibilities that are realistic for the individual you're working with. And of course, when vocational rehab gets involved, we'll assist in that process, but we don't want to set an individual up with an expectation that they're going to be a master auto mechanic when they don't have the ability really to reach that goal. Or maybe they don't really understand everything that is involved with becoming a master auto mechanic. And then, of course, priorities. What are that individual's priorities? We meet with a lot of people who are focused on they need employment now. They have house payments to make, they have kids to raise, they don't have a long time to, go to college and, pursue that kind of thing. So they need something shorter term. That's important. And then, of course, the focus is on employment. We don't work with people, so that way we can help them achieve a degree. That is not why vocational rehab is in existence. Our focus is employment and having more working individuals in our society with disabilities. And of course, there have been studies done on that show, when a workplace integrates individuals of all ability levels, it tends to be a more supportive environment. Their other employees feel more supported, and they feel more part of the team. All right. Now, we're going to review the VR process and go into each of these areas a little bit more in detail with the next few slides. Obviously, the first step in the VR process is referral. And that can take place by anybody referring an individual to our services. Let's see. Typically, when we're working with students, meet with either the student or the parent, and we will ask that they contact us again or let their teacher know that they're interested in receiving services through vocational rehab. And part of that is that we want to see that the individual is really gonna be engaged in the process. Because as a vocational rehab counselor, it's really frustrating when you go to the school, you have a teacher or somebody really facilitating the process, which is fine. But then after school ends, we don't hear from that student again, they don't return our phone calls, and it becomes a bang head against the wall situation.
Did you want me to go on over to where you talk about each individual slide?
Yeah, you can. We'll go on
I
to
mean,
the next
I
one.
wasn't gonna, I just wanted to.
I was gonna talk to them before we.
Okay, this one.
All right, oops, go back to the other one,
Go
just
back.
for a minute, yeah, right there.
Okay.
So that goes into a little bit more about referral, and as you can see, one of the referral sources are teachers, especially for those transition students. With greater emphasis on employment first, which focuses on employment in the general workforce as a preferred outcome for all individuals with disabilities, regardless of what that disability level may be, and with amendments, recent amendments to the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, through WIOA, or Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. I always get my acronyms mixed up. There is a greater push towards working with transition students. As the expectations of WIOA are further defined by federal government, I would expect that vocational rehabilitation and teachers, counselors, and schools really should start to work more in conjunction with one another. A couple of the recent changes that are coming down the pike are that us as vocational rehab counselors are expected to work in the schools with the students a lot earlier. I know currently the verbiage under, is it Article 7 is 14?
It's 14, actually, where we're required to start including it in our IEP. And then 16, we need a representative at the case conference. But if we, with students with moderate intellectual disabilities, autism, we need to be teaching career work skills in kindergarten up.
Yeah.
Self-determination, those.
Well, and expectations.
Yes.
Start setting up those expectations that
What you can
one
do,
day
you
you're
do.
gonna work.
Yes.
So along with that, there is another change, and I know second class, you haven't really delved into the Bureau of Developmental Disabilities or any of the waivers, or talked about sheltered workshops. These are all other services for individuals that may be transitioning out of school. So those that are the most severely disabled, your individuals that are maybe less verbal, not verbal, very limited intellectual ability, and maybe some physical impairments that go along with that. In the past, they would often receive referrals to go into the sheltered workshop.
Right.
Now, that referral cannot take place. They cannot enter a sheltered workshop until they have been referred to vocational rehabilitation services and transition has been explored. So,
And that puts more of the onus back on us. When the latest reiteration of what I call reiteration, each state looks at when IDA is amended. And then they write their rules for it. Kentucky a little different, Indiana a little different, but this is a federal law.
federal.
So it used to be, years back, we met with you guys at 14, And we set up their skills because more of the students were self-contained then. They're not now. They're all everywhere. And so they kind of get a general direction of a career path by the courses they take. The school counselor meets with them and they pick out some electives. Those should follow what their big interests are toward working. That would be the next step. And then we would invite you guys at 16. So it sounds like to me the requirement's gonna be you're in ninth grade. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they can. They haven't set like a particular grade level, and of course, all of this is still rolling out, and often with, state policies and procedures, it's a kind of learn as you go thing, and it changes continuously. But the big kicker is these services have to be explored in order to make sure that individuals with disabilities are able to transition into something that's going to meet their needs once they're done with high school. And the sheltered workshop is often a big piece of that for individuals. I know that there's federal push to get away from the sheltered workshop, and yes.
Can you briefly explain what that is? Because I've never heard
The
of it.
sheltered workshop?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of stigma behind the shelter workshops and what they are. I've been around them, worked around them, so I think they're a positive thing. So it's typically a industrial type setting that is created as, it's supposed to be for to teach vocational skills. So it's a vocational training facility is what they call it.
And they would have had that in your class with Barnes.
Did we? All right. Well,
Vocational
I just
curriculum
don't
is all about having this is one of the options. Also, how many of you watched the video, John? Did any of you get to see that at all in this group? None of you? Maybe I'll make time to show that to all of you because it has, John is doing exactly what she's telling you about.
Yeah.
The sheltered workshop, being employed, remember I said they get employed for a company and they get next to nothing in their pay? I talked about that Tuesday. That's a sheltered workshop.
Okay.
I didn't call it that, I called it RAL and
Yeah.
a few other names.
Ralph
Okay.
and New Hope Services are the ones in our
Right.
area that have the sheltered workshop. And what it is, Fred, my mind went blank, what they call the wage. But they're paid piece rate.
Yes,
Yeah.
for them.
Per diem, yes. per
Because
diem.
I think John
No,
worked
per
a
diem.
whole year and earned $51 after
Yeah,
taxes.
and that piece rate is really, it's based on productivity, right? So each piece of work that they produce, they are paid a certain amount for. And, they figure out that rate based on what a typical individual would be able to produce over a certain amount of time and what they would be compensated for. So, definitely a deficit is that the, rate they are paid is not much. There are some social benefits, especially for those that are most severely disabled. They're in an environment with their peers, they have oversight. Often I think it's used kind of as a babysitter by parents.
Some of it has been,
Yeah.
I like it, remember I told you the coaches go in and will work with them and help them along the
Mhm.
way? So that's also a piece of it,
Yes.
but I think the
The
biggest
day
part of it was socialization. And the fact that when you get up, you have a job. Well, in the video on John, John has a job every morning and it's unfolding a sheet of paper off a cone. Okay? But it looks like, I mean, it somewhat appears like a babysitting service to some people at some time.
Yeah.
And sometimes the children are so severe, they really can't do the job.
Yes.
So that becomes the issue.
Yeah. So, and like I said, there's a lot of stigma. There's a federal push to get rid of them. They're kind of viewed as, a lot of people view them as sweatshops.
Yes.
I would say if you've never been to one, it may be beneficial to tour it. I'm sure the Ralph and New Hope would both be open to that.
Yeah, I think Ralph might. I might see if I could set that up for us, if y'all would like to go and start there, or maybe break and end there one day. I'll see if they'll give us a tour of what they do and the jobs.
Do you have contact information?
Yeah, and I can get a hold of someone. Miss Samantha.
Is that kind of what sandstone is in like Madison?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
that's exactly
Okay.
what it is, and that's the one I'm familiar
Yep.
with.
Yeah, my cousin works there.
Yes, it's an awesome place.
It is.
Do you know what
Yes.
they're called in Kentucky?
Same thing in all.
Yeah, well,
Everywhere.
sheltered workshops, I don't know which ones do it. I know one of the big community, rehab centers used to do it, Communicare maybe?
Okay, yeah, I've heard of Communicare. I know that's in E-Town.
Yeah, and if you were to Google it and just put in the city you're in, because as you're writing your transition plans,
Mm-hmm.
you may decide that you need a sheltered workshop for your student at some point. Then you want to find what agencies in your area.
Just remember, before they can go there, they gotta come here. All right,
Okay, I'll move on here on
Yep.
that piece. I don't know if you're
I'm
finished.
done with that.
Okay,
All right.
go again.
Referral application, hold on, let me see. I got off track, I got chatty. That just kind of goes over what we talk about in the referral. You know, we just gather their information, basic information. A lot of times the school can provide that. An important piece on that slide is that if you guys
Right here.
are working with transition students, if you could help provide any information as far as a 504 plan, an IEP, any medical records or psychological evaluations, that would be greatly beneficial. It would also let us know too if we are going to need to obtain updated information, especially as far as the psych reports go. I know the schools in the county I serve, most of the psychological evaluations I see were done when they were in third grade. So,
Okay, now, remember what I told y'all Tuesday? And then they get here, and we can't give them extended time? We can't work with them for anything, because they don't have a current psych report? And as the teacher of that child, you need to make sure that the 3 years before they leave the school to 2, that we have a current psych report. The district won't want to do it. It costs more money. But if you really care about that child's future, all you gotta say is it's the law. VocRehab needs it, this student needs VocRehab. No one will argue with those words. It's a law,
of course,
federal.
and especially if the parent requests it, they have to do it.
Absolutely, and most parents would be involved, but
Yeah,
for the
there's a
students
lot.
I'm seeing are those that are more, have a form of dyslexia, a form of a learning disability, maybe with organization, maybe a fear of test taking that's come as such an anxiety they can't take tests in the classroom. ADHD, I have students that are, that have diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. And we have to make accommodations here, like we would for anyone else. The problem becomes, they come here, they're 19, 20, or 18. They just graduated from high school, and guess what? You haven't done a new psych report because they've been in high school and they're passing A's and B's. You check on them, what? Once a semester now. They graduate, they think they're fine to go to college, they get here and they can't get any support. Then they have to lay out a year while we try to figure out how to help them because they can't pay for support.
Usually they get referred back to vocational rehabilitation, because that is a service that we can cover and pay for. So we do order a lot of psychological evaluations, just to get a idea of what that individual's IQ is, what their academic functioning is, if there's anything else going on like ADHD, personality disorder,
You do aptitude too? Do y'all do aptitude, career?
Yeah, we can do some career
And if you have your transition plan filled out correctly, and it's current, because you know, a ninth grader changes their mind by 12th grade, or they're, 21, they're on the group of students that will be in school longer. They may not make up their mind or develop that skill till 20, so then it's 21. Then you wanna make sure you've got that interest, a new one with them. This just speeds the process of getting them the assistance they need, other than years go by and then the parents quit and no one gets them anything.
And then with vocational rehab, getting involved more early on with students, we can really focus on things like that career interest inventory testing, job shadowing, so that way they can see what kinds of employment are out there and what they might like, situational assessment or work experiences, which actually put them in a job setting, to see if they can perform those job duties. Yeah. This is just, again, general information, the types of things that, we discuss or try to obtain during that application meeting. So that application meeting is typically with students gonna be about the second time that we meet them, and we're really trying to build a rapport and get an idea of who that person is overall. So we gather a lot of their historical information, if they've done any types of employment. Of course, when they're 17, 18 years old, there's not too terribly much to gather typically, but. And then we start to work on that collateral information again, the 504 plan, the IEP, medical records. Do we need to get additional information? And that stuff's really necessary, so that way, as we move down the line, we can address any possible functional limitations and make sure that there are things in place so they can overcome said limitation and be successful in their employment.
I gave them an example Tuesday of a student that I worked with that had a traumatic brain injury with one part of her body having some paralysis. Her major arm she used had the most significant. And I'm not going over the whole story, but we worked through getting her, while she was at the end of her, she had her credits, leaving her in school where she had employment with a coach. We got her at Walmart, agreed to work with her and get her hired, and then through funding, we got one-handed cash register, which they didn't have at that time, but they got one special, and they trained her. Now, she's still working, she's married and has kids and everything, but that was a part of making sure she was ready to leave the school. It wasn't just that she had the credits. It was the fact that I was afraid that she would just get left and ignored if we didn't get on the ball and get something going. And VocRehab plays step in that from ninth grade on, actually, they were at every meeting. Because she still retained her intellect, she needed, we had to know every year what to do differently, so she was prepared.
And services like vocational rehab services, we really try to be strength-based and look at what can that individual do, not where are their deficits. Because obviously that's kind of self-defeatist, you're not gonna get anywhere that way. This kind of talks about eligibility. So once we meet with an individual and we take their application, we have 60 days to determine whether or not that individual is eligible for our services. Believe it or not, sometimes that's easier said than done, depending on what needs to be gathered in order to make that person eligible. But of course, that's neither here nor there. That's my problem, I suppose. So in order to determine an individual eligible for VR services, it is a sequential process. So we look at, is that individual impaired? Do they have a disability or impairment? Does that disability or impairment impede or make them finding employment more difficult? does the individual need VR services to prepare for, enter, or maintain integrated employment? And would they benefit from VR services? So we get like the individuals we talked about earlier that are gonna be those more severely disabled and have a lot more functional limitations. We would do what we call a trial work experience and, trial work evaluation. We have two now and it's continuing. So the trial work evaluation, we're going to put that individual in a work setting and we're going to try to determine will they benefit from services. And sometimes they may not, but we have to have evidence above and beyond the norm in order to say a person won't benefit for our services. So we try to do everything we can to provide services for anybody. Yes, IPE. Our individualized plan for employment. That's where we really kind of sit down with an individual and we'll do what they call our comprehensive assessment. So we're looking at what is that individual's employment goal? What kinds of impairments do they have? What do they need to overcome that? Where are their abilities and strengths? And can we say that that vocational goal can be supported? Because obviously we have to look and say it's an obtainable goal. So if there's only, say they choose a job goal where there's no growth, then we may not be able to support that. We may need to look into different areas that they might be interested in. And during that IPE, we set up expected time frames for services to last. So all depends on the type of training or services the individual might need. And individualized services, we provide a lot of different services and it touches on a lot of different things. Here recently, I've been working with, counseling and guidance, that's always on there. That's us, that's how we justify our services. Then the job-related services, that can be paid services to help individuals seek out employment and get appropriate support. And then of course training, which would be like post-secondary or other vocational training. And then the other two big ones I think are like the assistive technology and the vehicle modification, home modification. So we can do a lot of different things.
And that, as I said, even applies to adults. Yeah, when you have grandparents and parents and nieces.
Yep, I currently have one client who I'm doing a vehicle home modification and he is in his 60s. So we cover vast age range.
Could you explain that? Because I had a student last year that the vehicle was a problem after he graduated.
Yep. So, depends, what was the student situation?
We were getting him, he was going on a certificate of completion.
So not a high school diploma.
Right.
He was so we're looking at an IQ range of,
He was in the like mid-50s.
moderate.
Right.
That's
Well,
what
he
you're
was,
saying?
yeah.
Moderate.
But he was like ED. We were trying to get him into the workforce and he didn't have.
Transportation. So would he, be dependent on his parents to provide the transportation? So he was going to be able to transport himself?
Yes.
And he needed modification to the vehicle, or he
No.
just needed the vehicle?
He's been-
Okay. So we can't
Yeah.
unfortunately provide a
Wait.
vehicle.
Okay, because he was living, he was actually removed from the home into child place. Me and her, they got moved out of there. So it was quite a,
Yeah, it's a bit, transportation is one of the biggest challenges, for us as vocational rehab counselors and of course for those that we serve and other service providers. The biggest struggle is transportation, especially if you are serving a county that is rural. Like I work out of Scott County and there is no public transportation
And
there.
You're in
yeah,
that
okay. Yeah,
area.
I've worked with Ms. Abbott.
So you know what some of the
Yeah.
concern is,
Uh-huh.
because that was where I was at for a while, and, we had did it during, when they were in school, we keep them in between two, and we provided transportation through our busing system. We also had a summer program where they worked every summer, all summer, but the school funded getting there and getting back. If there's not a charge, the only thing, taxi cab would cost a fortune. But isn't there a agency van that, but only if they work at a sheltered shop or something, like nothing at all?
No, well, there used to be a sheltered workshop in Scott County.
That's what I thought.
They don't have that anymore. There is an agency that has, transportation, but it's spotty, Southern Indiana Transit, I don't know. if you're familiar
yeah,
with that. They
that's-
kind of stink.
It's not great.
Yeah, it's not the best.
Well, it's hard to keep people for that ride and then get lost and then if you miss some and then you get there and there's just to go and and
They
then
take
they don't
forever
get
to get
paid
there.
even though they went to pick them up. And
We used to have-
it's very frustrating because you're in the same situation we are. You get federal money, but sometimes the federal money doesn't go for what we really want it to go for.
Yes, so like as far as transportation goes, we can assist with the training aspect, so with, helping them get driver's training, to get their driver's license, and then the vehicle has to be their responsibility. And before they'll let us provide the driver's training, they have to have a solid plan on how they're gonna obtain a vehicle. So,
And at one time, I don't think it was, I know it wasn't, it's been 20 years, but it was someone younger. I had a student that had dyslexia, literally could do the work, had a good 110 IQ, but truly, we didn't have any of those things you have now, that computers that read everything to them and helped assist it. So one of the big drawbacks for the family was the man of the house died. The grandma and grandmother all spoke German, and the mother had a phobia and she didn't leave the home. So therefore, he didn't have any way to get to anything. One of the things that we had happen though, VocRehab came out and we, myself and that lady, we read the test to him and they verified it. I read with no, we can't, we did it exactly by the book and passed the reading test. So that was really, really awesome. And then, and that was in that area too. Then later, a church donated a car to them, just a local church. And it wasn't like a brand new car, but they did donate him a car. All that aside, he is working in Houston and does semi mechanics, whatever you do when you work on semis. And he makes a lot of money. And he said, and we read using the automotive order books. And starting in 7th grade because he refused to read. And the teacher, the 9th grade teacher for math, allowed him to take an engine apart in her classroom. She put old desks together in the back. I mean, it gives me chills now.
That's awesome.
But that's how you make these things work. You take these people, these agencies that you're all looking for, you take that child's interest, and then you figure out how to make it work.
Gotta think outside the box.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's so many cool things now with assistive technology, that can be used. Of course, vocational rehab help out with assistive technology, evaluations and all that fun.
So they could get assistive tech if they needed it. My friend who's totally blind relies on all her assistance from VocRehab. They got her computer, she can hear it, she can put her things, she can use it there. So they took care of that. It's amazing.
And our services aren't a one-time thing, so of course, yes, that's very important.
This
So our goal is employment, obviously, and, that's what we look at. Do they have the training and all that they need for employment? And the supports to help them maintain that employment for a certain period of time before we close their case. But once their case, go to the next one. This is like other services, and I think we've really kind of touched a lot on that.
Yes.
So I'll go back to, like, the case closure, and go back to that vocational rehab services, can be used at any point in time without an individual's, circumstances. So like, I'll use myself as an example. I went through vocational rehabilitation to get my bachelor's degree, got a job, worked and got first my master's degree and got hired with vocational rehab. But along that, I've had not just one case with vocational rehab. I've had, of course, I have a van that is modified for me to drive, so I can, of course, get myself back and forth to work. And vocational rehab helped with that modification, which is like a $30,000 modification to a vehicle. I have purchased a vehicle, but they do the modification. So here recently, I had to open up another case because I needed a new van. So they modified the second van for me. So, and say if somebody's impairment becomes worse down the line and they need additional accommodations, or if they had a successful case close with vocational rehab and they lost their job and they need help finding a new job, we can help with that.
You help with training too, and like if you get injured and you can't do, like say she can't do this job, they will train you for another job. For anybody, I think it's just so awesome, I don't even know how to talk about it. And as you get better through physical rehab, they will change your goals and where you're going. Because it could be you're at one spot working, but as your body heals and improves, that's what we found with the student I worked with that I learned. Only worked with a few. You will work with many people with a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
I didn't work with many because most of them didn't live to get help at that time. We didn't have the tech. But the students that I did work with, I found VocRehab as my best resource in my local agencies and spiritual, either church or whatever, spiritual or group, family, that extra support also makes a difference.
Yeah,
For helping
support
students
system
survive.
is a huge factor in resilience.
Yes, and how they survive both rehab and get their jobs and go on to have the life that they want. When they call when the child turns 16 and has the special need, and you believe they're gonna benefit from VocRehab, do they just put you on the IEP invite list? Do they give it a list to their director and they send it to you, or do we just do pamphlets now? What's
So,
going on with that?
process, like I said, it has kind of started to change with, LEOA and those federal legislations coming down the line. Right now, vocational rehab counselors try to be in the school, at least one day a week. The more schools you have, not a week, I'm sorry, a month.
Okay.
Yeah, a week would probably be more beneficial. But one day a month, if we're assigned multiple schools, which most of us are, that can get split in half. But when we're there, we can be used as a resource try to start that at the beginning of the school year now. I think they're trying to get some of the local community rehab providers involved in that as well, so that way they will be available to help with some of these preliminary exploratory type things. Because obviously our caseloads are huge, and it's really hard to provide all of those services that are needed.
Are they still tapping in? I don't know if you will, I don't know especially. Are we still tapping into wraparound services? Grads, are you familiar with that? Maybe at all. It's been out there, but it didn't really catch on in the 90s, because we did it in Scottsburg with several
Let's
students.
say, I know Scottsburg used to have wraparound services, but I don't
We
think
have
they're
any.
doing it.
What it, wraparound was exactly what she just said. If I had a student that needed assistance, she would be there, counselor would be there, possibly if they were in probation came. With my student with a severe injury, her OT, PT, and psychiatrist came for at least 2 times, just to give it, and we had a list of what we needed help with, so they knew how actually, we mailed it to them, faxed it, we faxed it. I might probably mailed it too, because we didn't trust fax machines, but you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we have anything like that right now.
I was just curious if they got past it, you know, it costs money. Once again, it always comes back to that, dollar. You want to go to this one, or the next, where are you at?
I think I'm,
I just-
yeah.
That's the last one.
Yep, so for VR services, you can access that website, like if you're not serving Southern Indiana, or even if you are, to get the appropriate contact number and information, for the VR services that you need. I can go ahead and give you guys the phone number to our main office.
Did you believe so? Some of them will need it when they start in the fall, and some won't need it for a long time, and may not.
The number for our main office is 812-288-8261. And hopefully, when you guys start working in the schools, you'll have access to VR counselors that can kind of help facilitate the process.
Yeah, but you never over your head.
And we try to be accessible as possible.
But she's awesome. I haven't spoken to her in a year, and I was trying to remember your name, and it's unique, and I'm still trying to remember it, okay? This is my brain. So I'm going through all, and it popped up on my cell phone that y'all know rarely works anyways. And I said it was God, it had to be, because I've been hunting everyone that came up, and I texted you,
Yeah.
and she was the same phone number for a whole year. And I was amazed.
That's rare nowadays, let me tell you, our office has been kind of crazy.
Well, let's give her a round of applause.